Hello! Today I would like to talk a little bit about item number setup. And to do that, first I'm going to go over some basics of item number setup in Stratton, and then we're going to jump into Coupa so I can show you the differences and how items are set up in Coupa. So as you can see, I'm starting with Stratton Warren here, and this is the web version in case it looks a little weird. It's not a green screen. And I'm going to go into the item master. So in Stratton, once an item number is created, anyone can access it. So as long as it's an active number, it can be put on a purchase rec and purchased at any time. The price can be manually entered by somebody, and then it's all traced back to this particular item. Look forward, because that is very different than how it is in Coupa. So once I'm in the item master and I'm looking at this Budweiser beer bottle, I can see a couple things. So first, the item number is actually an intelligent number that starts with the commodity structure here. So as you can see, it starts with 20. The next two digits are 10 to mean beverage. The next two digits are 10 to mean beer bottle domestic. And that can kind of be chosen by your Stratton Warren setup. So that's just what we're looking at here. So the item number is intelligent. Then we look into the description, which can be formatted any way we want. There's actually multiple lines available here, but in this case, they're only using one. But there is a limit, so you can see there's a limit to how many characters. The next thing you'll see here is that the expense account is actually dictated at the item level. So to be able to change this, you either have to have access to change it, or you have to create multiple item numbers, or use a SUEXA table to change it based on who's ordering it. Then we get into UOMs, so unit of measures. All of them are kind of in one table. The purchase UOMs, recipe unit of measures are here as well, and then how they break down and kind of relate to each other is in this table. As we scroll down, you can see this is where we would make an item active. You can assign a buyer, preferred vendor, and some other, miscellaneous attributes to the item level. But that's kind of how items are set up in Stratton. If I want to add this to stock control, which is the warehouse, totally separate screen, and that's maintained separately than this. And then if I want to add pricing or suppliers, that's also in a completely separate area and can only be seen and maintained by a certain number of people. So that is kind of how the structure of an item number works in Stratton. Item numbers can usually in Stratton be set up by your local procurement team or whoever has access. So that's also something that varies. And we're going to jump in because kind of all of what we just talked about in Coupa is kind of mushed together. So I'm going to jump to Coupa, and I've already done some preliminary searches, so we're going to be looking at the same item in both screens. Now, there's two types or two structures to an item in Coupa. The first we're going to be focusing on is just the item itself. And you can see from this information, here is the structure of an item, okay? Has the description, the item number, which we actually assign internally. While it looks very much like a Stratton Warren number, it is not an intelligent number. It's just created as items are created. It's not intelligent at all. But we do actually select the commodity that goes to this item as the item is set up. It's not done in an item number fashion. And then as you can see, we select a basic unit of measure. Again, just a reiteration of the part number. We do a preliminary breakdown of the unit of measures available, but we only go to 3. Smaller unit of measures are actually done in the recipe tool, which is a Tableau feature. Recipes and recipe features are not housed in Coupa, so that's a big difference. Okay, and as you can see, it's just the basic information of the item. So this is a Coupa item, and as you can see, we have one description of this particular Budweiser beer bottle. Now, the next phase is the supplier item, which I have searched here. This is the exact same Budweiser bottle, but as you can see, a little bit of different information and a lot more options. Okay, so What's the difference? The difference is a supplier item is just that. It's the item, right? It's just the beer bottle. And it's the beer bottle. There's 24 in a case, 24, one case, 24 bottles in a case, and each bottle is 12 ounces. That's it. There's no supplier information. There's no pricing information. There's no GL code here, if you can see that. There's no recipe tool information here. This is just the beer bottle. Now, if I want to know who we're buying it from, how much it costs, those things are done at the supplier item level. Now, you might be wondering, why would someone need to buy this particular Budweiser from 15 different suppliers? Well, they're not. We are a global company, so we're all in here together. So as you can see, this standard supplier company sells this for $25.20 a case, and this is their part number. Right below it, the Blackhawk internal supplier. Yes, this is the Blackhawk warehouse. In Coupa, they are not a housed separate stock control type environment. It is a supplier. So the Blackhawk supplier is right here with all the other suppliers. And Blackhawk supplier actually sells this for $24.55 a case. Southern Beverage sells it for $22.30 a case. So you can see how different the pricing is across the company. I can also see that Council Bluffs stocks this in their warehouse, River City stocks it in theirs, East Chicago stocks it in theirs. So all of this is housed, and this is the supplier item information. So notice there's no unit of measures here. That's all done at the item level. This just talks about the supplier who we're buying it from, the price, so what we're paying for it, their part number, right? So that's the supplier item level. Now, I can see all this information in one screen. So if I click on the Budweiser bottle description, it actually takes me, and you can see from the Budweiser, this is all the item information, right? Just the stuff about the bottle or case of Budweiser. As I scroll down, I can see that there are all of my suppliers. So this is my supplier information, and this is my item only information. So again, items and supplier items. Now there's a couple things here. So first, I'm sure you noticed, there's not an expense account anywhere, right? That seems a little odd. That is because in Coupa, the expense account is not dictated at the item or the supplier item level. It defaults based on the item commodity selected, so beer domestic. It will default to what the system considers the most common general ledger expense code, but it is up to the end user to change it in their cart if they want to charge it somewhere else. That's a big difference. As we noticed, there's very few unit of measures and breakdowns here. That's because the recipe module is actually housed in a totally separate system. That's Tableau. Nothing recipe related is really housed in Coupa, just the initial breakdown of unit of measures. And it does pull pricing from Coupa, but all of that's done in a separate system. And then stock control. I'm sure you guys realized that when we were looking through the supplier items that our warehouses are here. So while some of the warehouse attributes like order days, PARs are housed in the warehouse module of this and the warehouse activities, whether an item can be put in a warehouse or not is actually determined right here at the inventory attributes level. So once an item is added to an inventory, these few things are added to the item level of this beer. And then any of these properties that have access to these contracts can add this to their warehouse. So a little bit of difference there. And then the last thing, just to kind of go over it, is you have to be wondering, well, wait a minute, since they're all the same supplier and they're all using the same item, how do we not order from the wrong supplier? So if I'm in Council Bluffs and we stock it in the Council Bluffs warehouse, what keeps them from ordering the beer from the Blackhawk warehouse? That's a really good question. So at the supplier item level, you'll notice each supplier item has a contract listed here. So each one of these contracts has multiple items attached to it. It can. And the contract itself is content grouped, meaning that the property that has the content group, so in this case, Council Bluffs, if you do not have access as a user to the Council Bluffs content group, you will not be able to see this contract or any of the items attached to it. So that's how we keep properties ordering the right things, even though all of the suppliers are attached to the same item. So these are the biggest differences between Stratton and Coupa, and this is the basics of how items are set up in Coupa. I hope this helped. Thank you.